hoping that you'd give me that glimmer of hope that I could just expect them to be punk rock fans too, you know?
You never know. Like I said, my son's 19 and he's playing Fugazi, he's playing the Descendants, playing Misfits, and it's like, all right, he messes around on the guitar. It's like, I think he's got a little bit in there, but he's got a wider variety of music than I do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a lot, but not to the extent that they do. You know,
It's funny that that older music is coming back again, like that early '90s skate punk, even late '80s punk is coming back. Do you like? Did you
wait a
ever ask your
second.
son like?
Wait, where'd it go? Did it disappear?
It kind of did, right? It kind of like even now, like I'm a huge punk rock fan in general, and so like my high school years, it was the pop punk phase, right? Like you had the Yellow Cards, the Simple Plans, the Good Charlottes, all of those more mainstream punk rock bands,
Right.
Blink 182 as well, and then it just like instantly just cut off. It just like disappeared. And now it's coming back thanks to Travis Barker, I think, obviously, and making pop punk a little bit more mainstream again. And I'm like, man, a lot of these bands that I loved, I forgot about them sadly. And then I realized, wait, they never stopped making music. I just stopped listening because I kind of followed the trends of whatever was going on. And did that, like, for you as you're making music, continuing to pump out awesome stuff after awesome stuff? Is there ever a time where you're like you're looking at the scene and things go slow for you and then pick back up, or has it been pretty consistent throughout the whole journey?
You know, like when I first started playing music in the early 80s, it was thriving. Hardcore was thriving, especially in LA area here, and it was starting to get out into the suburbs, and you know, the younger kids like myself were shaving our heads, and then we started kind of getting into skateboarding, and you know, the surf culture scenes out by the beach were developing their own style of music, but hardcore was thriving. And then the late 80s, it kind of started to die a little bit, and you wondered like, wow, is punk dying out? And then, you know, I'm sure you've heard this by other people. Bad Religion put out Suffer,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of, you know, Suffer and No Control, and it just seemed like, okay, there's a new direction out here of the same punk rock music, but it's getting better. It's more melodic, and that was a revival for sure. And you know, once that happened for me, I don't know if I ever. I mean, obviously, it's slowed down to an extent where we'd go to shows, and you know, there might be 100 people instead of 300 people, or you know,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But there was still always that core of people that were into it, and then there was the people like you're mentioning, like yourself, who kind of got into like. I remember we played a show with Yellow Card. They came out to this area and they were living out here, and we played a show at this place called the Ventura Theater, and it was
Mm-hmm.
the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and it kind of hit me on this particular night. Um, we headlined, and there was about 450 people there, and it was pretty good. A Yellow Card played, and then there was like 150 people there for our. And we were like, oh shit, man, this is, you know, and that kind of made me realize like, well, they're just not into us, but they were just that was getting really popular at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just the way it was. But I don't know if it's ever really slowed down in my mind. I think it's always been there because these bands have continued to put out records, and they've continued to play live and write songs, and you know, maybe the crowds have diminished a little bit and then kind of gone within phases, but that's like anything.
Yeah.
Everything kind of has its cycles. Bell bottoms were popular in the 60s again, you know. um, I'm still waiting for, like, you know, there was a period in time in the 90s when skaters had these huge baggy clothes, and then everybody went to skinny jeans, and now they're kind of out of the skinny jean phase. And who knows, man?
Yeah.
Music's like fashion. It kind of comes and go in waves. But I think the ones that are real passionate about what they do, it's always going to remain there, and the music's always going to be played and written. You know.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, yeah, eventually I think Gene Code jeans actually are back now. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
the I know that the middle part is back, you know, the bowl cut middle part.
That's weird. See, that's weird for me. I haven't seen that since high school.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to look back, like look at these kids, like, you know, I'm realizing like, oh, I'm at the boomer stage now. I'm getting old. I'm getting to this point where I'm like, I still wear skinny jeans in my Vans. Just don't don't bother me.
Yeah.
This is what I wear.
Yeah.
And for you, like, I'd imagine it was a little bit different. Obviously coming at music from the angle that you did, where it was more of the side project passion of things. When you were, putting out music, that first record, what were your expectations when you first started, and like with Pulley? Because I guess obviously 10-Foot Pole is a different project, but with Pulley, when you put out that first record, was there any expectations, or was it all just like, hey, we love what we're doing, let's just put this out there and have fun?
Well, it was, let's put this out there and we love what we're doing and we're going to have fun. I mean, so I'll give you a little backstory. So I had been playing with the guys in 10-Foot Pole. We all went to school together. We've been playing for like 10, 12 years. And our break came and we put out a record on Epitaph. It was called Rev. It did really well. The scene started booming. The Offspring was selling records. Pennywise was selling records. And that particular scene was starting to get popular. Music was being played on these surf videos, snowboard videos. And it's like, wow, this is kind of happening. And then I was asked to leave. So I picked up the phone and the first guy I called was the guitar player, Mike. And I said, hey, want to start a band, want to have fun. I want it to be about having fun, because my experience with 10-Foot Pole was fun until things kind of started getting popular. And then I don't want to say it was ego, but it was like, wow, we can make it now. And they lost sight of why we were jamming for the previous 10, 12 years in the first place. So I didn't necessarily fall into that trap, probably because of my schedule, and knew that the reality was I'll never be able to do that full time like that. So go ahead and live your dream, and I'm going to get some friends and start a band together that we're going to continue to have fun. Expectations, 100% there was expectations to write good music and put out records. And Brett from Epitaph basically signed us unheard and said,
wow,
put together some songs. And he said, and we'll record them. So we did actually do like a short demo of 2 or 3 songs. I sent it to him and he's like, yeah, that's cool. Go in the studio and record an album. And he goes, and he said flat out, he goes, you guys don't really have to worry about touring. You just have to put out good songs and good records, and they'll sell. People will want to hear the music if it's good. And I think the days of touring, I don't know if you have to go out. It's a bonus to be able to go out and play your songs live, and you win over fans, but I don't think necessarily you have to release a record and go out and play live anymore with the ability to access music. And if word of mouth gets around and people like something, they're going to listen to it. And if they are coming to town, not all those people go to shows. And I've learned that kind of the hard way. And I've learned that, I've had those experiences where, we got to go out and tour. We got to go out and tour on this record. And we've done it, and it was no better than it was before the record was out. So, or no worse, one of the two,
Yeah.
Either way, the expectations were write good songs, put out a good product, and set the bar here so that everything that comes after it has to stay at that level. And those have been our expectations.
And that makes complete sense. I like that they're, like, obviously I'd imagine the rep from Epitaph, he already obviously signed 10-Foot Pole knowing what you were capable of and what your songwriting style was. And is that why he kind of just like, all right, dude, let's make some music together? Is that why he was willing to sign you guys right off the rip?
I think so. I think that had a lot to do with it. The success we had with the previous release, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. And I think there was a lot of faith and trust there, and knew that we were capable of doing something like that. And I'd hopefully like to think we did. I mean, we were fortunate enough to be able to put out 5 records there. And, to me, that's still to this day the best punk rock record label there is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even now with what they're doing, they're always kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to what the counterculture music is. They're very much attuned to kind of like putting out counterculture music, as Epitaph Records is. I think they've done that for years and years and years now, because there's a few different record labels that have just done really great work. I don't know anything about Vagrant anymore, but Vagrant Records back in the day, Epitaph Records back in the day, Geffen Records back in the day, that was kind of like the record labels that I would look to for like good music. And that's how I knew about you guys was through one of the, I think Epitaph did one of those sample CDs.
Yeah,
where it had like
10 of them.
Yeah. So it was one of those is where I heard you guys for the first time, and I was like, sold.
And you know, they had the best bands. I mean, they had Rancid, they had Pennywise, they had, you know, No Effects. They had these bands that like The Offspring. So being able to ride some of those coattails is like, I think as fans, you know, we were on those compilations with those bands. We were like, people would give it a listen because, well, I like this band and I like that band. And you know, hitting on what you said a little bit, I think I'm not a fan of all the stuff they put out nowadays. I'm not going to lie. But you're right, they are ahead of the curve because they have to. Music evolves, and in order to stay relevant and stay up to speed, and that's the one thing I have respected about them is they weren't afraid to take a chance and put out some. I mean, they just signed the Lindas. I mean, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, then they started a little subsidiary label that had, you know, Hank Williams III and, you know, a lot of these old blues guys, and it's you know what you're going to get. Or you knew what you were going to get at a certain time. Now, I don't think you could just pick up an Epitaph record and assume you're going to get the next Offspring album because it's not going to happen. Or anyways, but they are broadening their audience and reaching out to a lot different variety of people and making their labels still survive. And they're still surviving.